Hi everyone. Whilst we're all at home and have some time, I'd like to introduce you to an activity that is creative, imaginative and very relaxing. And the best part all is that all you need is some paper, some coffee and a pen. Now these creatures were all created using just the coffee to make the stains and then worked into with the pen. And now I know this isn't a new concept. I don't know how I came by the idea, but I'm sure if you look up coffee stains doodles on the internet there'll be lots. And it has been said that Leonardo da Vinci used to get his art students to stare at the stains on old walls until they found mythological creatures. And of course we've all stared up at the clouds and found animals and characters in them. And you know, the great thing about creating these characters is that they are all unique, and until you have started working into them with the pen, you never know what might materialise. And here's some examples of my own coffee stained creatures. So why have a go? Firstly, it's fun. It's much more creative than, say, just using a colouring book, because you're actually creating something unique, something new. And it's a challenge. Just when you think, I can't find anything in the splodge, something appears. It might be a wing, an ear, a trunk, and you start creating your own unique character. Also, it improves your imagination, your creative thought process and your technical ability. Do you know that doodling and drawing are as good for you as meditation? Because this most relaxing of activities helps to lower your pulse, your blood pressure, your stress and anxiety levels. When you are absorbed in this task, you literally think or worry about nothing else. You just need to give it a go and see what I mean. And of course the outcomes will make you smile. So all you need to do is to make a strong black coffee. 2 teaspoons should do it, okay, and then let it cool. And then you're ready. And all you need to do is simply pour a splodge onto the page and then use the back of your spoon to gently manipulate a shape. It's best not to think about it too much, but when you're starting out you might want to make it a little bit easier for yourself by manipulating it a little bit. And that's as complicated as it gets. If you find that the coffee, you've got too much coffee, simply use a tissue just to lift a little bit away, and it will dry quicker as well. And it also creates a bit of a nice texture. And it's also best to leave the paper where you haven't got to now move it away so that it will go everywhere. So just let that dry. You can use a hairdryer if you're really impatient. But again, you have to be careful that you don't blow the splodge all over the place. And that's it. That's the first part. And now you're ready to get creative. Here you can see I've created several splodges already. And what I also did before I poured the coffee stains on, I added some tone to the page by just dipping a large brush onto the paper to create like a background colour. A bit of tone, but you do not have to do that at all. So once it's all dried, you're ready to go. And the way I find it easiest is if I find a shape and I start to outline it first. So with the pen, I just slowly outline it, working my way around. So once you've finished your outline, and the reason I outline it is because it makes the image stand out a little bit more, and as you're working around the image you can start to identify shapes and features, and also it makes you really look at the image. So it's a good idea to outline it, because now you can start to identify sort of noses maybe, and ears, and you can start to recognise sort of certain shapes. This is looking like a dog with a dog's nose here. Maybe he's standing in front of this guy and he's kind of looking like a mouse character, I'm thinking, maybe skateboarding. So you can start to identify shapes. And then that's it, you can start to really add the texture and the detail then. So once you start to add detail, it really helps, and this is a really good thing for drawing, is that you visualise. Visualising is really, really important to create sort of realistic parts of the creatures. Because remember, you want to create an unrealistic, a new creature, a mythological creature, but you want the parts to look realistic, if that makes sense. So visualising is really helpful. So, for example, if you want to turn something into a dog, you might really want to think about how their ears are, the texture of their fur, how they might move. If you're adding feathers, really think about the texture and the feel of feathers. You know, trunks, for example, elephant trunks, really think about how they move, how they look. So it's all about visualisation. That's probably the key to sort of having a successful drawing, because then you'll add more detail and it will just sort of come alive a little bit more. And there you are. I think I've finished this character. I'd say he's half mouse, half dragon, and he's taking his dog out for a ride on a broomstick. So, and that's as simple as that. There's little other things that you can do, of course. I do have some white pens. These are quite handy. If you just want to add some highlights, you by no means need them, but sometimes it's quite fun just to add sort of, you know, little highlights and extra pieces. Here's one where I've sort of used the pen quite a lot to create contrast. So there's a bit of colour, there's a bit of contrast, like I just said, and a bit of highlight. That works fairly well. And then, of course, you can add colour. So these are just been done with alcohol felt pens, but you can be creative. You know, beetroot juice is an excellent colour. Turmeric. You can use whatever you got to paint and work into these characters. And like I said, really, you know, you can have a nice set of pens, drawing pens like this, but a simple 10p biro is all that I use for most of my drawings. You really don't need it, you know, to be spending out on a lot. Well, I think that just leaves me with some top tips for you now. The first thing I'd like to say is don't worry about making mistakes. You can usually turn them into something, and it's all part of the process. This is doodling, so it's a fun process. You can usually, if you make an error or you feel like you make an error, turn it into something. So don't worry about mistakes. And experiment. You know, what else could you use instead of coffee to create the stain? Food colouring, like I said earlier, beetroot juice and turmeric. There's stuff we've all got in our kitchen cupboards that you can actually, one, use to create the stains, and two, use to add a bit of colour inside them. And lastly, if you feel like you've outlined your coffee stain, you really can't find anything and you're getting frustrated, just turn the paper around. I find by working and turning the paper around, then the shape materialises at some point, because sometimes when it's upside down it sort of springs out at you. Okay, so what I'd like to leave you with is something that you can add to with all of this. You could actually create your own environment for your characters. Here you can see I've added lots of vines and strange, like, organic structures for my creatures to sit amongst. You can also give your characters names. You could then write a story, and if you do have any 3D modelling materials at home, then you can actually create them as a 3D character. We've done that in school before and it's been really, really, really good fun. So I hope you have a go, and most importantly, have fun with it if you do have a go, and take care. Thank you.